It began during a routine lunar survey on February 12, 2019. The LRO, NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, was passing over the moon's southern hemisphere, capturing high-resolution images of the surface. The region was empty, untouched, and unchanged for millions of years. Nothing unusual had ever been recorded there. But that morning, one of the satellite's imaging sequences captured something that shouldn't have existed. A shadow. At first glance, it looked like an artifact in the data, a dark shape stretching across the surface, long and narrow, positioned near a crater that had already been mapped countless times. But as the team reviewed consecutive frames, they noticed something that stopped the room cold. The shadow had moved, not gradually, like the drift caused by angle or sunlight, but in a way that implied displacement. In one frame, it was beside the crater. In the next, shifted several meters away. The surface itself showed no disturbance, no dust trails, no debris, no markings of any kind. Only a shadow that changed position between images. NASA analysts ran through every possible explanation: imaging error, camera vibration, compression distortion, solar anomaly, orbital shift. None of them fit the pattern. The movement wasn't random. It was directional. As one engineer put it, whatever cast that shadow wasn't there by accident. When the area was imaged again just minutes later, the shadow was gone. Not faded, not distorted, completely absent. NASA's initial response was to classify the frames as inconclusive, but several researchers pushed for deeper analysis. They compared the shadow's dimensions to known lunar features and discovered something disturbing. The shadow measured nearly 14 meters in length, far larger than any equipment or debris humanity had ever placed on the moon. Worse, its proportions didn't match any geological formation in that region. The team then studied the angle of the shadow to determine the object's height. The results implied that whatever cast it was tall, unnaturally tall, rising several meters above the surface. A second anomaly emerged days later when another satellite, orbiting on a different trajectory, recorded a brief drop in reflected light from the same region, almost like something had passed over the terrain and altered the sunlight for a fraction of a second. Some researchers suggested a boulder slide or subsurface collapse, but lunar seismic monitors showed nothing. Others proposed a temporary obstruction in the satellite's view, but that still didn't explain the consistent shape and movement. One astrophysicist proposed an unsettling possibility. The shadow belonged to something vertical, an object capable of standing upright and then changing position between frames. NASA quietly reassigned the images to a restricted internal database. But leaks happened, and a blurry version of the first frame surfaced online months later. Most dismissed it as a hoax. Yet the real, unedited sequence remained locked away, known only to the analysts who had seen the full data. One of them later spoke anonymously. According to him, the most disturbing detail wasn't just the movement, it was the orientation. The shadow didn't simply shift, it rotated, slightly, as if turning toward the satellite. He claimed that brightness readings showed a momentary change in reflectivity around the shadow's source area, consistent with a surface object adjusting its position. When asked if the object could have been extraterrestrial equipment or unknown debris from a past mission, he refused to answer directly. Instead, he said something that has circulated in scientific forums ever since. There are things on the moon we haven't mapped. Maybe things that don't want to be mapped. The region hasn't shown any similar anomalies since. Repeated imaging reveals nothing unusual, only empty terrain identical to what the moon has always been. Still, several researchers insist that the shadow sequence remains unexplained. No known physical object on the lunar surface could move in that way without leaving evidence behind. And shadows don't move unless the thing creating them does. Whatever the satellite saw lasted only a few seconds. Enough time to appear, enough time to shift, and, according to some, enough time to look back. The moon is supposed to be silent, still, and unchanging. But on that morning in 2019, something on its surface changed position, and no one could explain what it was.